Yo, and welcome to the 104th episode of Lake of Rage, a Pokemon trading card game podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kevin Clementi, aka Mellow_Magikarp. I'm joined today by a very special temporary guest host, joining us fresh off of a top 4 at the Portland Regional Championships. We have the one and only Andy Gantner. Andy, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm very happy that I got to get you on the pod. I had Elliot on, for the Worlds roundtable a little while ago, and I'm like, all right, Andy, you got to give me that good finish, and you did it.
Yeah,
you got that killer, right? And it was well deserved too. You've been in day 2 like constantly this season, and now it's like it finally paid off. Finally got there.
Yeah, my day 2 runs this season didn't been 3 3s, 2 4s, and everything, but glad to finally have a good run in day 2.
And we'll talk about all those runs, that you've had this season, everything else in a little bit. But first, what we're going to be getting to today, we're going to have some rapid strike questions because, of course, the first time we've had Andy on the podcast. Then we're going to get to know a little bit more about his history as a player, because you're a name who kind of came out of nowhere. And I think that the nowhere will make sense after we dive a little deeper into that. And then we're going to talk about the Portland run, because we kind of played the same deck, but not really. So I want to talk a little bit about, how both of those went, our experiences with it. And then we're going to dive into Turbo Lost Box, the deck that, we played with the Ultra Balls and Luminions and stuff like that. Because I think there is a lot moving forward that people are ignoring with the deck that they should respect it quite a bit, because there's a lot of cool stuff going on there.
Yeah. Deck's sick.
So first thing, some rapid strike questions. You're going to have 60 seconds to answer as many as you can. No explanation, just straight off the dome. What do you think? Are you ready?
Okay. Yes, right. I'm ready.
Question number 1. Do you prefer winter or summer?
Winter.
What's your favorite snack?
The Cheeto. No. The Dorito like circular, like the Dorito rolls that are like Takis,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What's your favorite retro format ever?
Ooh, I liked Peak ROM format.
Let's go. What's your favorite deck ever?
Mew. I liked Mew.
That's disgusting. Would you rather be late or be early?
Rather be early.
What's your favorite internationals location?
Columbus, Ohio.
Do you prefer soup or salad?
Soup.
Would you rather, toppings on your perfect pizza?
Ooh, jalapenos.
Okay.
Sausage and bacon. Yeah.
All right, bet. Last one. What color sleeves do you use?
Black. I like black.
Awesome. So you only got through 9. 9 out of 20 is an F, unfortunately. But you still got more than Alex, and that's all that matters.
There we go. Yeah, I can flex that to him when I see him tomorrow.
Oh, you have to, 100%. And yeah, just let him know you got over twice as many as he got. So I want to dive a little bit into your history as a player, because I feel like you're a name that, like, people keep posting the top 16 standings or whatever, the CP race, and your name is there in all bold, of course, or all caps. And it's like a lot of people kind of ignore that you have been having an amazing season. So Andy, when did you start playing the game just in general? And when did you start playing competitively and seriously?
So I started playing the game when I was I think it was when I was around 8, because my brother wanted to get into the game. He got a theme deck or something, and he wanted to go to League at Chains, and my mom wanted a place where we could hang out, because there wasn't much we could do when we were 8, so we went to League, and it was just a great place to talk to people, socialize and stuff. So that's where I got into it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got super competitive, when I started to go to everything and try and go for races and stuff, was last year as a senior.
Was that pre-pandemic you started, or was that post-pandemic you started the serious grind?
Post-pandemic, yeah. Okay. I got my invite by going to a couple cups challenges and then 2 regionals the year before. and then just was like, the next year I was like, why not just like go in fully? So I committed. Yeah,
How did that last half of seniors go for you last year?
it was nuts. I my first regional coming back, I top forward, and we were like, well, that just locks me up for a top 4 stipend because there's one tournament in this quarter other than EUIC, and like nobody's going to EUIC.
Mhm.
So I'm basically locked for top 4 stipend. So I can just go to NAIC. We even went to EUIC to try and lock up my top 4 stipend just in case a couple people got points from NA.
Mhm.
Um, so I just like that one top 4 just like launched me in a spiral where I started going everywhere.
Let's go. Did you have any other good finishes in seniors?
Yeah, I got second at Vancouver regionals. I lost to Reagan in finals because I flipped 3 tails on cramps, and I got. I was pretty pissed, but
I mean,
happens.
that's valid. If we've learned anything from this past weekend, it's that Reagan absolutely demolishes everyone from Seattle.
Oh yeah, and that was his 3rd regional win in a row that season.
That's so,
He had to beat me in, yeah.
bro. He's so good.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty nuts.
So this is your first season in Masters. How did your first tournament as a Master go?
The London Open was my first official tournament as a Master, and that was sick. I played the deck I should have played for Worlds, Ice Rider, Palkia, Intel,
Mhm.
because I'd been practicing for like a couple months, and I was like, this deck's really nuts. And then on the flight over to Worlds, I decided to switch to Mew because I was like, I've been playing Mew for the whole season. Why not play it for one more tournament?
Mew seemed like
That
a
was,
really good play. It turned out to be a trap, but it seemed
yeah,
like a really good play for Worlds.
yeah. So yeah, I ended up playing Calyrex to the Open, and won 8-1-1 and finished top 8, which sent me off in a pretty good start to the season.
Yeah, because okay, this is something I don't actually know, but I think stipends carry over, right? Like if you finish quarter 4 in seniors, you get the stipend as a Master, correct? For the next.
Yes, so I finished top 4 in the season before for the LAIC travel award, so I got the travel award to go to Sao Paulo in Masters.
Nice. So how did the rest of the season, like what are some other like highlights? Because I know you got quite a few. So this is your chance to brag. What are some of those other highlights from the season?
Peoria was pretty sick, but I lost 2 win-ins to top 8 in a row.
That's killer.
Yeah. It was unfortunate, but I mean, I had a great time.
And you're on
I just
Kiram for that tournament, correct?
Yeah, I played Kiram for that tournament. Apparently everybody did not like. So I was like, I didn't for the beginning half of the season. I wasn't in any testing groups. Never really talked to any like players who were super competitive in the game, right? Other than
Mhm.
like our local testing server, right?
Yeah.
So I just like went in, played something that was there.
I mean, it's clearly a good deck, right? You just like blow stuff
Yeah.
up and hope it works.
Yeah. You hope not to hit Reggie's, and then you're like, okay, GG's. Or Palkia, yeah.
Yeah, what'd you lose your win-ins to? I actually never heard this one.
So I lost one of them to Palkia Intel,
Okay, fair.
and then the other one I lost to Zorark V-Star.
Did you let the Zorark into top 8?
Actually, no, because 1-10-3-1 or 11-3-1 bubble into cut, and I was 10-3-1 at that point, and I lost him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying I lost the second one in because I had 75% resistance at that tournament.
Gotcha. So you would have bubbled in.
I was guaranteed. The next lowest person was like 61% resistance, and I was 75, and I was just like, pretty sick.
That's killer.
Yeah.
So you ended up with a good Kiram finish, and then you're rolling now. You have a top 8. You have a top, was it 16 or 32?
32.
32. That always that's always the worst. You lose the win in, and then it just drops you down to 32, and you're like, well, okay, cool.
Yeah. happens.
But okay, so you got some good finishes there, right? Is this the point where you're like, I can make a run for the top 16 race, or are you just like, I'm just playing Pokemon, I want my invite?
I'm gonna try, but I'm not gonna be too mad if I miss.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obviously gonna go to a bunch of cups. I think I have an advantage there, as a lot of people have cup finishes, and I like don't. So if I get a couple cup finishes, I just get farther into the top 16 standings. Yeah.
Right on.
So
Where are you sitting at right now in the top 16 race?
I'm like 16 or 17th right now. So
Oh no.
I'm on the boat right now. We'll see.
No, it's fine. By the time this episode comes out, you'll have won 2 cups this weekend. And
True.
yeah, you're going to be like 14, 13, 12 at that point, and then you're good to go, right?
Yeah. And then I just need points at NAIC, and then I'm chilling.
Yeah, it's easy. And everyone gets points at NAIC. It's free.
Exactly. Free. I just need to like go 5-3-1 and get 60 points for top 5-12.
Is it actually 60 for top 5-12?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. It's so ridiculous.
I know. You get top 32 points for getting top 512 at NAIC. It's ridiculous. It's like actually crazy.
Why?
ICs are so stacked.
Yeah, why do people try a regional? Just go to 4 ICs and you're good to go.
I know. There's no point in flying to a bunch of regional. Like, I feel like you have no shot at doing the stipend race unless you like go to every single IC, you know? Because there's just like no point in trying if you can't make it to all of them.
We had, for listeners, we had Sam Chen on a couple months ago. And that was almost the exact same thing that he was talking about, is like, you go to the ICs and you do well, obviously. You can't just bomb them, but you do well and you're like, you're in a pretty good spot.
Well, if you get points at least at each of the ICs, that's like, OCIC isn't top 256 points, so that's like 340 points automatically. So like you're 10 points away from the invite and 500 points away from your stipend, and you're just like close.
Yeah, that's go 5-1 at 4 ICs, get top 4 at a league challenge, and you're good to go.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
So how many day 2s did you make this season?
Oh shoot!
Or is that you've made too many that you don't even know the number? My goodness.
It's like, I think it's like 6. It might be 5. I will. I
guess we'll count the open as a day 2 as well. There was no day 2, but you got top 8, so I think we can count that. Yeah.
Okay, so I have Portland, I have OCIC, I have Orlando, I have Arlington, I have LAIC, and I have Peoria. So that's 6, but if we count the open, that's 7.
So a pretty darn strong season coming from you, for sure. This is, that first season is Masters. You were absolutely killing it.
I appreciate it. But I mean, I don't know why I get more recognition than my brother, because he just has like the same finishes as me. But I just like have the storyline of being on stream. So
that is true. And we had Elliot on for a World's Meta discussion a little while ago, and Elliot's been also killing it. So if you see either of the Gantner brothers, you should be afraid. I've played both of them at locals like a lot. Shout out to Tabletop Village for hosting so many tournaments over the pandemic. They will give you a good game. Unfortunately, they will make you work for any possible wins. Definitely 2 names to be afraid of in this game.
Thanks, Kevin.
So I do want to talk about Portland, of course, because that's why we're here, right? You got that absolutely killer finish. So I want to start a little bit. I was also in Portland. We kind of got to the same place with decks. I made a couple of changes, and then I scrubbed out at top 128 versus you obviously got the top 4, right? So I want to talk a little bit about, we got the list from the same person. So shout out to Owen for that one, and then shout out to Victor for giving it to Owen. But before that, I was on Turbo Lost Box, but I was on a slightly different build. I had the Kyogre. I'm going to say it's almost identical to the list that like Azul and Grant and Isaiah brought, but that's not a surprise because it's a very vanilla list. Technically, they're just very good players. And on the car ride up, I was terrified. I was like, I don't know how to play Kyogre. Like, I'm not actually that good at this game. I've played, 20 or so games in the past week, maybe even 2 weeks, like not that many practice games. I was like, I don't think I can do Kyogre. And then Owen sent the list to the Discord, and I was like, wait, this is kind of sick. And then you tested it, and you're like, you and Johnny tested. I got to give Johnny credit too. But it was like, you're like, bro, this deck's insane, right? What deck
Yeah.
were you on before you had started testing it? And then what made you switch over to the Turbo Lost Box with the Ultra Balls and Luminion?
So I was considering either Lugia or just Turbo Lasso and Vanilla before the event. And then literally like 5 minutes before, or like probably 15 minutes before I was gonna leave to head down to Portland, he sends, or I check the Discord, and I see the list Owen posted, and I'm like, yo, Lumen and Ultra Ball seems sick. So I like throw it together, play like three test hands, and hit Mirage Gate every turn one Mirage Gate every single time I do. And I was just like, yo, this deck's sick. And I was like, I'm playing this just automatically. So I locked it in and just chucked it for the regional, you know.
So I want to talk a little bit about my favorite turn one Mirage Gates, and then I want you to share a couple of yours. I'm sure you got them too, but yeah. I have two that stand out very blatantly to me. One of them was against a Guardi opponent, and they're deciding between like getting another Ralts or getting a Manaphy, and they're like, I don't think you got it like that. And I look at my hand and I'm like, okay, sure. And I proceed to just Greninja them, and they just like, game two. It was so beautiful. Like they blatantly were like, no, you never do this. Another game, I tweeted this one out too in response to Azul's controversial quote unquote tweet about, you know, oh, you always keep playing the game until you win, like it's totally fine. I try to do the opposite against Mew, right? Mew, literally a free matchup for this deck. But
yeah.
I'm playing. I've got they Roxanne me into like a boss and a Mirage Gate or something. You know, it was like the perfect hand because Mew sucks, right? And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna boss the Genesect. I'm a Dragonite for game, and I just do it incredibly quickly because I'm like, I got this, right? I end up knocking out my own Comfey because I'd put damage counters on it with Drapion earlier because I didn't get my Greninja out. You know, the various story, right? It was the correct place to put the damage counters. So we go to sudden death. It's technically not sudden death, but we go to sudden death. My opponent goes Mew in the active, DTE, attaches a Choice Belt. That was the mistake. They didn't bench anything. They played around the Drapion correctly. I proceed to get the double Mirage Gate, double vacuum to get the Drapion KO in sudden death. And they were just sitting there stunned like, that never happens. And I'm like, that actually happens fairly often. It was so good.
My favorite part of that is the BM of attacking with Drapion there instead of anything else.
Because, okay, I will defend the Drapion because I didn't have a water energy in hand to Dragonite, and I didn't know I was going to get the second Mirage Gate, but the Drapion to beat me was just too good every time.
Yeah, that's sick.
All right, now I got to hear yours. What are your favorite turn one Mirage Gates that you pulled off in that tournament?
Okay, so I hit I hit a Lost Zone Zard, and game 2, I believe. So game 1, I didn't really draw very well and I lost. But game 2, I started with like Comfey, VIP Pass, 2 switch outs, 4 Seal Stone, Nest Ball, Lost Vacuum, Colress, and I'm just like,
that's so good.
Okay. I have Donk in hand.
That's
and then
beautiful.
He puts down 2 Comfeys, and I'm just like, Greninja game.
That's a big feels good right there.
Yeah, so we went to game 3 pretty quick, to say the least.
That's the way to finish 3 games in the Lost Zone mirror. Dead draw game 1, donk them game 2, then you're good to go.
Yeah, we had like 40 minutes left for the third game. Yeah. But I mean, I didn't hit too many actually donks after that. I think I might have hit, or not like donks, but I probably hit a couple other turn 1 Mirage Gates where I hit like 7 and lost them, but I couldn't take advantage of it because I didn't have like another switch out or you know, like, because there's some situations where you like have to like lost them and switch out instead of like your second Clara, and it just like gets super awkward. So you're like, I don't want to go for donk here because I think if I lost on 2 Claras, I can't finish the game anyways.
That sounds about right based off my experience. I cut the lax, which we'll talk about in a second. You played Snorlax. I didn't. And that was when I found out a lot where it's like, oh, you benched Manaphy. Like, I'm just going to Cramorant here, even if I can get 7 in the Lost Zone. Because, like, I'm not going to give you a Raikou. I'm not going to KO your, Mew from Celebrations or whatever with my Raikou. I'm just going to crammer at you.
Yeah.
So it's like, it felt good. If the ones where it felt good were so good, but the other games were like, I'm just going to cram and it's totally fine. So
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. One thing I felt that was pretty cool with the deck is even if I hit turn 1 Mirage Gate, and like I didn't have some like a great thing to knock out with, I would just like to get turn 1 Mirage Gate, I might have to like bench Lumen. I just was like, it's my second Cramorant. I get to put it back in deck and maybe use it later. So that was pretty cool.
That is another sick, because you can freely Mirage Gate. I think the more that I played Turbo Lost Box, I realized that like you really only need 2 Mirage Gates most games. Sometimes you get away with even less because you're just Sableye spamming. So using one on a Lumineon, at least for me, was always totally fine. I don't know if you have an opinion on the Mirage Gate thing on that one, where you're like, yeah, they're expendable, right?
Yeah, they're a lost zone card if it comes down to it. I mean, like I always like finding them off like Roxanne or Judge, but like the more the better. But like if it comes down to it, lost zoning one does not feel too bad.
And then I want to talk a little bit more about the rest of your Portland run, because as a real quick, because people want to know, I went 6-3, right? I lost on stream to Reagan. No one should watch that game. It was miserable, terrible. I watched Azul VOD review it, and I made one incredibly stupid play. Shout out to me for playing VIP pass before Colress and then whiffing basic Pokemon. That's bad. And then a couple other like minor plays, but it's a miserable matchup. Lugia is, as we'll get to, not a good matchup for this deck. And then I lost to a Lost Box. I think I told you this one. I ranted to everyone I could. They played double Manaphy, Penny, Hawlucha, and Echoing Horn. And so game one, I'm like, okay, if I Sableye their Manaphy, they never get Sableye. Like, it's almost impossible, right? They just bench a second Manaphy from hand, and I'm like, all right, well, GG's, I guess. And then, I continue. I'm still ahead technically. I continue to play around the Sableyes. I have one Comfey on bench. I have nothing else they can Greninja. They can't Sableye for 2 prizes. And they go Echoing Horn, Hawlucha. And I'm like, all right, well, you got me, buddy. GG's, right? And then I got double donked by Lesage. And those are my 3 losses, right? It sucks.
Wait, you got double donked by Lesage?
Well, kind of. I went concealed cards pass. He went Cramorant. I went concealed cards scoop. So technically wasn't a donk, I guess. But
yeah, that's really unlucky.
Yeah, it's a big rip, right? Yeah. So that was the TLDR on my tournament run. But I want to dive into your tournament run, because yours was pretty good. What are some of the like key matchups? You don't have to go through every single round, but what were some of the ones that are like really memorable to you that you're like, oh, this round is really sick, or like, that type of stuff, right?
Yeah. So within the first 4 rounds, I hit 2 Miraidons, and I was,
bro, what?
I was like, sure. And one of them was playing like double Clef Key plus Cleansing Gloves and Regieleki. I was like, I'll lose to that.
Yeah, that's fair. Did you lose that one, or was that a
lose to Alan? Or yeah, I lost that one. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I hit another one. And that guy was really nice. I really like him. His name's Anthony Perez. He made top 8. But his list was sick. He ran like Flaffies and Magnezone and like all that good stuff. We ended up tying because I did not expect to see Magnezone come and play game 1. So I just like lost my Manaphy early, and I was just like,
oh. Okay, that's how you lose that matchup. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just got behind there. Yeah, so I like that. And then I hit 2 Arctinas this run. I feel like the first one I probably should have beaten. But he judged me, and I just couldn't get out of judge. It happens sometimes, where you just like you think you're gonna win, you have a buffer turn, but judge just hits you like a brick wall, and you just like can't do anything here.
This is one that I don't know, because I played on the live ladder. I was like, oh, let's queue up Turbo Lost Box. I can play it like the back of my hand. And then I got absolutely demolished by an Arctina. How does the Arctina matchup go? Like, how do you approach that matchup in general? Obviously, it depends is the correct answer, but how does it usually go?
My goal for the matchup is to go like turn 2 Sableye spread, going like 30-36 60,
Mhm.
targeting 60 on the Tina, and then the 230s on the Arceuses.
Mhm.
And then I try and boss the Tina with my Dragonite and knock it out. And then they have to try and counter KO
Mhm.
with both a V guarded and choice belted Arceus to knock out. And then in that case, I would have to like do some fancy footwork with like another Sableye and then go back in with Dragonite
Mhm.
because I don't think they run two belts.
Some do, but I think you're correct. I wouldn't expect it, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I would probably yeah, just try and KO. Just set up Dragonite math on everything, and then just keep trying to swing with Dragonite. And target down the things I can one shot it. That's mostly, yeah.
Okay.
This is the matchup.
That sounds a very realistic. I think a good for anyone picking up this deck for the first time, or if you're picking up a Zool or Grants deck, is Dragonite carries you pretty hard in a lot of matchups. All right, so you get some Arctinas. What else were some of the key things happening?
I hit 3 Mews in day 2 and 2 Sablezards. So
what?
That was well, including top 8, 3 Mews, but
okay.
So technically 4 in day 2. So I really only had to beat one deck to make top 8.
That's the dream.
Yeah, I had the matchup lottery. So like there's not much to explain with the Zard matchup other than you just want to hit 10 and lost them and then just keep targeting down their Manaphy and force them to claw over and over.
Yeah. And which, despite my loss to it, the matchup is very good. Like Zard players will tell you they're more consistent, and the fact I got double donked makes it appear that way. But no. If Turbo sets up, it absolutely demolishes Zard. I will stand by that 100%. And you set up a lot.
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, you proved it too.
Yeah. It seems like a pretty good matchup, and I hit one on my winning end, and I was pretty confident that I was just going to win there. So,
and you even hit shout out to who we had on the Portland Meta discussion, Kiana Meany, who is two-time at least regional champion, a very 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 good player, and you pulled that one off, which is absolutely huge because I saw that name and I was like, oh, Andy is in for a tough one.
I want to talk about that matchup actually.
Yeah.
So interesting enough, I started Snorlax one game, and I went draw, attach, pass.
Oh no!
I won that game.
How?
I was going second, I believe, and then I Colress that first turn. So I went draw, Colress, attach, pass. I could have probably Comfade a couple times, but I was like, this doesn't seem worth. What if I just like give him one prize and try and get to 10 and lost him just by Colressing? Because I had 3 Colresses in hand, a Vacuum, and 2 Comfades, and I was just like, what if I just keep like putting down the 2 prizes and then get the first like important Sableye off?
Wait, that's actually a pretty sick strategy.
Yeah, he didn't have a strong turn 1, so I was doubting he could even Cramor at that turn. So I was like, maybe I could just like outpace him with the just Colresses. So that actually worked out, and I just hit 3 Colresses back to back to back, plus Vacuum, plus switch card into Comfey, Flower Select, and then Sableye. So I hadn't used a Flower Selecting until the turn I used Sableye that game, which was pretty cool.
That is one of the cool things about the Lax is you can sit there, and even if I don't know if Keon did get the Cramorant off or not, but even if they do, it's like, well, you're not going to Greninja it, and you're not going to Sableye it, so I can take this hit and be perfectly fine.
Yeah. It was an interesting game because I think something along the lines of that happened in game 2 where I had like 3 Colresses in hand and I didn't even use I never got an established board in that matchup, and I think that's pretty important in mirror or in the Lost Zone mirror because like if you don't have prizes for them to take, then they won't be taking prizes.
That is one of the best strategies in the world. Is sometimes you don't even Clara for the Manaphy back because then you're just benching Sableye targets, right? And you're like, I mean, obviously the Zard matchup you don't bench the Manaphy, but yeah, any of them you're like, well, if I just give you things you can't Greninja, then I don't have to bench the Manaphy because it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. Well, I actually assumed he was playing Turbo at first because I saw like a 4 Seal Stone and Vacuums in this deck, and I was just like, oh, it's probably Turbo, but it turned out not to be.
Were you not
But
checking? This is something that I'm curious because I haven't made a day 2 since PTCG Stats Live, which I guess has only been like 2 tournaments anyway. But do you check that at all during day 2 to see what your opponents are playing? Or you just like see a name and you're like, oh, I know what they're playing, or I don't know what they're playing, and that's fine?
yo, I did not know who Keon Amani was until people told me. I'm not gonna lie.
What? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I only know like the Reagan Retzloff and like the Rahul Reddy and the like the newer like I never like heard his like old like 2017 wins and stuff because
Yeah.
I didn't play back then, you know.
Hey, he did win in 2019 Santa Clara Regionals. So we have
True.
or 2019, yeah, it's 2019. So it's
19, yeah.
recent enough, but yeah, okay, that's fair. So that did that help you then, just going into a matchup like not worrying like, oh, I just hit someone on a win and totally fine, or were the
Yeah,
people high? Yeah.
yeah, I just thought I hit like a local or something. So
Oh, bro, that's free. Oregon players trash, right? No problem.
yeah. I was like, it's over. Yeah. So and on PTCG stats, I did check the live,
Mhm.
but they don't display the second card. So like if they're playing Lost Zone Box, they
Oh,
just display until the tournament's over, just to help players out. They just display the first card, which I do like because I don't want people like knowing I'm playing Turbo until I'm playing like they see I'm playing Turbo. You know.
yeah, that's an interesting one. That really helps out like Lost Zone decks. But like if you see a Lugia, you're like, well, I bet the second card's Archeops.
True.
We didn't get to see it. How'd the top 8 match go?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. That one's an interesting one. So game 1, I got farmed. I started like a 2-prizer, and then I just like lost it. There's not much to it.
This was in a Mew,
I mean,
correct?
yeah, into Mew,
Okay.
into Mew. Yeah, yeah. And then game 2.
Wait, I have to know how, like, what was going through your mind? Your first top cut as a master. You lost game 1 by getting, like you said, absolutely farmed. How are you
Yeah,
feeling going into game 2 at that point?
I was like, I'm happy to be here. If I lose, so be it. I
Nice.
did top 8. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it happens, you know.
True.
Yeah, so game 2, I get a pretty decent setup. And I know before the tournament because I asked one of the people I hit in day 1 if he was playing like Penny or not, and
Mhm.
like Thornton, because there's 2 different lines to go for against Mew. The more reliable line in my opinion is when they're not playing Penny or Thornton or like double switch card or something.
Mhm.
And that's where you go Greninja for 90/90, or Drapion turn 1 for 2 prize cards. And then you go Greninja for 90/90, and then Sableye twice in a row for game.
Yep.
Which in my opinion is the most reliable line, and like happens most of the time. But if they are playing that, then you kind of have to go for Drapion. You're forced in that play. So I was told that he was playing Penny, I believe, before, and I
Mhm.
was having to go in with Drapion later, which worked out, obviously. And
Spoiler.
spoiler. So I take 3 prize cards. He's at like 2. He rock sands me into like or like Lost Vacuum Ultra Ball or not, like, or no, Beach Court Ultra Ball, I believe.
Nice.
And then I go like draw for turn. It's an energy. Put down Beach Court, Greninja into 2, Lumen for Clara, Clara for Drapion game.
Let's go.
That was pretty sick.
Bro, the Ultra Ball's nuts every time.
Yeah, yeah. And then we go into game 3, right? And game 3, I get the second turn 3 prize knockout, and I started a 1 prizer, so he's down to 3 prizes. I'm down to 3 prizes, or he'll be down to 3 prizes once he knocks out my Drapions.
Mhm.
I'm down to 3 prizes, so he Roxanne knocks out my Drapion. I draw 4 cards off Roxanne.
No.
And I see the top 2 cards, and in the top 2 cards, early he discarded 4 paths, so he had no way to path me. So all I needed later in the game, in the next like 3 turns, was a Clara, and I'm just like, oh, it's over. But he rock sands me. The top 2 cards has Clara in it, and then the bottom 2 doesn't. And then I draw 4, and I'm like, oh, I made a major screw up here. So Brandon, our judge, is like, that's a DPL, so he needs 1 more turn now to win the game. So if I don't hit it this turn, I lose. And he's like, I'm shuffling these cards, and then giving you 2, and then putting the other 2 to the bottom, or to like shuffled in. And then he shuffles in. I get the Clara out of the 2 he shuffled. And I drop the Clara down, and I'm like, sorry, man, that was my bet on the DPL. If it's any comfort, the Clara was in the top 2 anyways.
I don't know if that would be comforting or not, just to know like you had it, you screwed up, and then you got it anyway.
That's true. Yeah, I was just like, well, that really feels bad. I was playing, it was a long day.
Oh gosh, especially with the day before going till, way past 10 o'clock, like, ooh.
Oh yeah. Got like 5 hours of sleep that night.
That's something. That's an amount of sleep.
Right.
All right, so you pull it off despite all odds, apparently. Drawing a judge off of Roxanne is not, not going to go well, right? That DPL is killer. Yeah. Got it anyway. Easy. You got the plot armor. And then you hit top 4, where you hit the Tabletop Village killer. It's the only way we can describe him now.
None of us except for Lee beat Reagan that entire tournament, and we only had Lee beat him once. You hit him twice.
Yeah, Lee beat him in the time it didn't matter, which was day 1, not day 2.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I hit Reagan. I feel like I played terrible that round. Like, I actually like really, really bad. Like, game 1, he didn't Summoning Star.
So you won, right? You always win that one.
I did not end up winning, but the reason I didn't win is I thought I was hitting Donk turn 1. Like, I was like, oh, this hand's nuts, I'm hitting Donk.
Yeah.
And like, I like lost zone 4 important cards, and I'm just like, okay, sick. And then I then I flowers, and then I VIP, and I'm like, oh, I prize 2 Comphase. I need to hit a heavy ball off like a Comphase or something, and this like not likely at all.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I can't hit Donk anymore, and I lost zoned like some really, really important cards, including like a Clara or 2 Clara, or no, like a Clara and a Energy Recycler.
And for anyone listening, the real quick math on Turbo Lost Box, if you want to pick up the deck, is 3 from Comfy, 1 from Chorus, 2 from Chorus, 2 from Vacuum to get to the 7. So that's incredibly important. If you prize 2, the odds of pulling it off are possible. Double Vacuum exists, but very unlikely.
Very unlikely.
Okay, continue.
So I missed turn 1, but I ended up getting turn 2 knockout on his Lugia, which doesn't matter because he has like isn't Urshifu set up, so he just counter KOs my Raikou, and then just takes 4 prizes with the Urshifu, because
he manually attached to the Urshifu.
Right. And the only way I can do damage against his Urshifu right now, like in the last few turns, is to Sableye. Like, the only attackers I have are Sableye and Cram.
Yeah.
And if I Sableye for 3 turns in a row, he is just a bench of Radiant Serena, and he takes 4 prizes before I can knock out his active. And I'm like,
I assume this was the VMAX then, right? Using that first attack.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, I escape roped up his Radiant Serena, and he's down 2 of his 3 DTEs, and then like in like a 30 card or like a 40 card deck, he has the DTE in hand. I'm like, no, this is so bad.
When you're good, you're good, apparently.
It was not great for me. But
all right, so you lose game 1 despite no Summoning Stars. I feel like if there's ever a chance to prove the matchup's not good, that is it. Like, even if you didn't play super cleanly, that one hurts to hear. I'm gonna be honest.
Oh yeah.
How did game 2 go?
he didn't Summoning Star, but this time I did.
Okay, good.
And I was like, well, I flower selecting, and I had like Dragonite and Clara as my two options. And game 1, I lost on Dragonite super early, and that like came back and bit me. And I was like, put Dragonite in lost zone, and was like, hopefully this doesn't bite me back again.
Yeah, that's always a sketchy in any matchup that's not the mirror, right? Is like 250 is a big number. I want that big number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but this time I was able to win, I guess, without him Summoning Star. So we went to game 3.
Did he finally Summoning Star?
Yeah, he's Summoning Star.
Oh,
so
you hate to see it.
Yeah. So he set up and it was game. So I had a line if he didn't like have Penny in hand, and if he didn't have Penny in hand and he didn't Craggle away my other energy recycler, because he Craggle 2 cards. They just couldn't be energy recycler. But it was, so I was like, I was just like, it's plot armor.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. That list too is not taking an L to Lost Box. Maybe the Kyogre, sure, but any other version, 3 V-Guard energies. So that T-Tar should never get KO'd by a Dragonite, right? 2 Judge, a Collapse Stadium, and a Penny. So that's and the Serena. So that's a lot of healing and a lot of tankiness, and that is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. It's really scary for us as Turbo Lost and Box builders.
So you end up with top 4. Great finish. First of probably many top cuts to come, I'm going to assume.
Fingers crossed.
But I want to talk a little bit about Turbo Lost Box in general moving forward. We did talk about some of the matchups, but your exact 60. So it's very tempting for people for sure to look at the top cut and be like, all right, who do I want to net deck? Grant Manley, Alex Szymanski, or this Andrew guy? Why should people go for your build over what Grant or Alex played?
I am much worse than Grant Manley, but my list made top 4. So that should speak for something, right?
That's always a valid argument.
Yeah. See, I did it with a good list. But he did it with a worse list. So he's better than me. But if you're getting into it, I think my list is better. But there's always debate. I mean, I'm willing to debate.
I think if you ignore the Lugia matchup, I think there's a very valid. Unfortunately, their Kyogre does help them a lot.
Yeah. Kyogre makes it winnable.
But I'll say, as someone else who played the list and got... So I did end up in the standings one place above Caleb, who played the same list as Grant, right? So it's that same parallel of the top 4 list and also the top 128 list.
Yeah. I think it's pretty bad. I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty based.
It is easier to play than Kyogre. I think that would be my argument. Like all day long. it's a lot of counting, but then you go fast. A lot of people think, and you can tell me if you disagree with this, but a lot of people think Lost Box is a very methodical deck, right? Every decision is really important, and that is true. But this version just punches you in the face so hard that I misplayed every single one of my 9 rounds. I am a washed Pokédad now, and the deck is so strong that it carried me super hard. Do you agree with just like the power of the deck is so incredibly high?
Yeah, I think it's like really hard for them to keep up when you're like bang, bang, bang. And then I'm just like, how do I can't come back from you. Like my Comphase are off the board because you Greninja them turn 2. What happened?
Sell us on the Ultra Ball.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I think 7 is bigger than 4.
Yo, big if true.
Yeah, and I like the 4 cards that are in my deck, which are Colruses. And the more outs I have to them, I feel like the more consistent my deck is. And people are saying and I have to discard bad stuff with my deck, like with Ultra Balls, right? But it's like not that bad. Like you can always Ultra Ball away like one of your a couple of your energies, or like an energy and a rope or something. Like
Mhm.
it's not the end of the world if you discard those, as long as you're like chorusing and getting those resources back while getting to in the loss zone. Like that's it's just like really really useful, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 7 is bigger than 4 is it sounds really stupid, but it's like 100% true. That's massive, right? Like, oh, you can play a Pokegear, but it's like, well, Pokegear hits, depending on how big the deck is, like 45 to 55% of the time. Ultra Ball hits, 90% of the time because you prize Lumineon occasionally. That's pretty
Yeah.
good. That's very good.
Well, you know what I did to my new list?
Ooh,
I
yeah.
said 9 is greater than 4. I added 2 Pokegears in there.
Yo, let's go. So, okay, let's talk about the changes that you would recommend real quick. Are there cards that you think are cuttable? Even if you haven't cut them yet, you're like, this is definitely a flex spot? Because it sounds like you've
Yeah.
already cut stuff.
So I think Roxanne's definitely cuttable.
Mhm.
I really do like Snorlax because it's super useful in Mirror. And like in general, just against big attackers. And also, I didn't even think about it like in my top 4 round, but there's definitely lines with it against Lugia
Mhm.
that I just didn't like, because I wasn't like too well like experienced with the deck before I went into the tournament. I played like maybe 20, 15 games before I played in the tournament, and I hit 0 Lugia, so I never like came across, and I never practiced against the Lugia is another thing.
Mhm.
So I just like never like thought through the lines. But there's definitely lines you can go with Snorlax that help the matchup a lot.
Can you walk us through the line? Because in the Discord, ignoring my terrible math, you did a very good job of like laying out the exact like, hey, this plus this plus this plays around Serena and still gets you there. So like, what are some of those Snorlax lines that you had thought of, if you
Yeah,
remember?
yeah. So a couple of the lines, like it's weird. So first, if they keep their Lugia inactive,
Mhm.
then you just Raikou it. Then they'll probably go in with Titar. And then you'll probably will want to like go 90-90 immediately with Greninja onto the Snorlax and their Lumen, because most of the time they're benching a Lumen. Like
The
in
dream.
yeah, there's no way they're not benching Lumen unless they're like just skill diffing everybody.
Shout out to my stream game where he was able to judge himself into the turn 2 Archeops. Big rip. But anyway, yes, you're correct. I played a Lugia later and they had to Lumineon twice one of the games and it was like, oh, this is literally free now.
Yeah, so you go 90-90. And then they'll probably bench Radiant Serena, which is unimportant because they heal down to 70.
Mhm.
And then you can Sableye, clean up the Lumen, putting 10 there, 2 probably on Titar, keeping the Titar at 90. They'll heal it down to 70. You're at 2 prizes. They'll be at like 2 there. It doesn't like really matter. But then you just go in with Snorlax and you just take the 1-hit KO on the Titar. And if they retreat immediately into Titar, you can just immediately go in with Snorlax and then go 90-90, clean up with Sableye, and then boss kill their Lugia.
Yeah, and this line of play too, I want to point out, if they penny, it sucks, but
Yeah.
then all the single strike energies are back in their hand.
Well, yeah. Well, but if they penny, they're benching another Lumen probably.
Also
then,
true.
I mean, 2 Lumens in play is bigger than 1. So.
That's true. 170 HP is not much.
No, it is. Yeah, you can just like easily take 4 prizes there in like 3 turns. So getting ahead on the race there is pretty easy.
Yeah, so you're laying out the math there is one of the reasons why I'm like, oh, maybe I should have kept Snorlax and it would have actually, maybe it would have done something. I don't know. But the Snorlax seems cool in theory into the Lugia matchup for sure.
Yeah.
But you said it's possibly cuttable too.
Yeah, it's definitely it definitely could be cut. If you just wanted to, like, I think the Lugia matchup's still bad even with trying to use one of those lines. Like I think it's probably still unfavored. But if you're just like willing to take like an auto loss to Lugia, then or like not an auto loss, but like a really bad matchup to Lugia, I mean then it's cuttable, I think.
Which is statistically doable, right? I hit 2 in my 9 rounds. You hit 1 in your, what is it, 15, 17 rounds?
Yeah, yeah, but it was my last round. That was the only one I hit.
So
I hit the lottery.
even going into like Hartford, or I think Malmo is the next one. Maybe taking the auto loss to Lugia is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
Are there any other cuttable cards that you think are like, or this could be like changeable or something like that?
Did I mention Roxanne? Did I say Roxanne or no?
Yeah, so far
Okay,
Roxanne and Snorlax, which I want to point out are the 2 cards that I cut almost immediately after seeing the list. And I was like, I want a 10th energy because I'm a coward, and a 4th escape rope because, again, I'm a coward and I want consistency.
Yeah, and I also think you could cut a vacuum, but I do like 3. But if you really, really want to be safe with managing your resources, like if you're like newer to the deck and you don't want those hard decisions of like energy and Clara, and want to be able to just like loss on an energy immediately when you see that decision, then I guess you could cut a vacuum for an energy. It just makes the deck slightly less consistent, but it should be fine.
Yeah, and when we talk about vacuum being a consistency card, it's obviously not going to help you set up, quote unquote, but the consistency here is hitting 7 or 10 ASAP.
Yeah.
I was thinking,
It will lower the times you get that just by a small margin, but that margin wins you a few games.
because how frequently did you get the turn 2 Sableye when you were like trying for it? Like that was the optimal play.
Most of the time. If I was going second, I like almost never missed it. But if I was going first, I hit it like half the time. People thought I was crazy when I was benching three Comphase turn 1, and I was just thinking like, if I bench 3 Comphase turn 1, like in Mirror, I feel like getting to 10 in the loss zone is probably like really important to do first.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm hitting turn 2 Sable, I have to bench 3 Comphase turn 1. Unless I want a double vacuum, which often doesn't happen.
Yeah, the double vacuum is tough. Although I will say one of my favorite things in Mirror is playing beach court, using it, vacuuming it away to get to the 10. That feels good. That feels so good. Yeah.
You give them like a little bit of like a sense of like, oh, I can retreat this turn. Oh, wait, I can't.
Especially you play it early. This is just one of those tricks that doesn't do much of anything, but just a little bit, right? You play the beach court early, you play out the whole turn normally, and then at the very end you do it, and they have to rethink everything at that point. That feels so good.
True. Just mess with their heads, you know?
Are there any other tough matchups beyond Lugia or anything else? If anyone's listening to this, they're going to take it to a cup next week or take it to Hartford or anything like that they should be practicing with the deck? Or any other tips that you figured out? Like you already mentioned Mew. Is there anything about Guardy, or maybe I think you already mentioned Mirror a little bit, or any other tips that you figured out with the deck?
Well, yesterday I figured out don't bench lock yourself with it against Mirror. Like that was
good
really
advice.
bad. Lee farmed me on stream because I just like the first game it was like midnight by that point, but the first game I just like threw just like straight up. I had it in hand and I was like thinking about doing the play, and then I just like brain farting and just played rope. I played rope instead of switch card, and I was like, whoops.
Not bench lock yourself is good advice. I will also second that one.
Yeah. Bench locking is pretty bad in that matchup, but only if they're good. If they're not like if you can tell like they're not like the strongest of players, that I know like that's not great to say, but like if you can tell that they're fairly new to the deck, I think it's pretty safe to do that because they're not gonna like. I don't think they're gonna bench lock me.
Ooh, so
or, like
spam
me with it.
Why was bench locking yourself so bad?
Oh yeah. So I did have a Sableye, right? But I was Sableyeing every turn. And so was he. But I couldn't bench a Greninja to clean up because he didn't have any of the Comphase in play. And I had like Comfey, Manaphy and Sableye,
Mhm.
and then like Snorlax on bench and Greninja also, and he had 5 prizes left, and then he went like 60-60, 60-60, 70, and then put some damage somewhere else, and then took 5 prizes in one turn, and I just lost.
Yeah, that's how you do it. The lack of utility, lack of being able to like do stuff every single turn, or have the optimal Pokemon on the benches.
Yeah.
Kind of bad.
It was not great. It was not great. You gotta have some space. And that's where I think. Well, I was talking about it with like Victor and Owen, and I think Penny could be pretty cool in the deck. But like, I mean, like taking your Lumen off the board seems pretty sick late game. And I don't know, just in general, it could be pretty cool, but I don't know. It can also get you out of those bench locking positions.
In my mirror where I got absolutely farmed by, I should look up their name, by the person with every single tech, they bench their Dragonite. I'm like, all right, you're bad. They put the 4 Sealstone on, it's game 2. I'm like, okay, I can beat this, right? So they can 4 Sealstone for something. I'm like, all right, that's my last 2 prizes to win the game. And right before going into the turn where I'd get the boss KO, they penny it up. And I'm like, uh-oh, no, this is bad. This is very bad. It's pretty good. Penny seemed very good there.
I mean, Penny's pretty sick.
Andy, do you have any shout outs or people you would like to thank?
Obviously my brother and my parents, because they were calling me throughout the tournament, just like supporting me and like telling me, rooting for me, like good luck on your wins, congrats on top 8, like everything like that. And like Tabletop Village, obviously they're the goats. They're like the best. They're the best store. Like they fed me barbecue last night for just being there. You know, like name one other store that does that? Like, I mean, right. And then Victor, Owen, and the group I same 60 with, which was you, a couple seniors, Johnny and Dominic, and then Owen, I believe.
Yeah, Owen ended up on the same. A little bit less lucky in what he hit, but
yeah.
And then where can the people find you if they want to hear more from you?
My Twitter is it's Andy Lol.
It'll be linked in the description box.
Sweet. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I don't have anything else. Any other socials?
Cool. Myself, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube at mellow_Magikarp. This has been another episode of the Lake of Rage podcast. We'll catch you all next week.